How are you?
Doing perfect. So you're in Illinois right now? You're in Chicago?
Yeah, yeah, a
Okay.
little bit north of the city. Yeah,
Awesome. I heard that you recently attended NAMM, uh, which is
yeah,
which is basically Disneyland for musicians.
pretty much. Yeah,
How was that experience for you and any cool moments or highlights? Because I heard it was your first NAMM experience.
yeah. No, it was incredible. I got invited to go through a group called Sensophonics. Basically, as an endorsed artist, they basically do like custom molded like earplugs and in-ear monitors. So I got invited to go out with them. But I mean, it was incredible. I mean, it was just such a great experience, just kind of taking everything in, just from, all the new products that were announced, and just seeing all the different guitars. It's just the all the people walking around. You don't know who you're going to run into. It's
Who'd you
pretty
run
cool.
into?
Oh my gosh, quite a few people. Well, it was great to like reconnect with some people like Jared James Nichols. Let's see, the Alice Cooper gang, the guitar players. It's great to see all of them. Um, I got to meet Phil X for the first time. Just kind of wandering around. It was like, oh, hey, Phil, how's it going? And I got to see him perform later on, and that was incredible. But I mean, just, yeah, so many great people. And just the atmosphere was amazing. It was really fun. Yeah.
That's awesome. I read your book recently, and it's pretty
Yeah.
inspiring. And
Thank you.
I read that you said that music has been like therapy for you, and that
Yeah.
one of your most powerful hospital moments was when music therapy delivered an electric guitar to your
Mhm.
room. Can you tell me more about that moment and how music became such a big part of your life?
Yeah. Well, yeah, there, let's see. So there were two kind of big surgeries, but I guess maybe the one that kind of sticks out to me the most was I had a big jaw surgery in 2017. And that was kind of this whole involved thing. Um, where, I had to be in the hospital for a little while for a little bit of the recovery. I had my mouth wired shut too. So it was just kind of this whole, crazy situation. But uh, like a day or two after, I was kind of like moving around a little bit and stuff. And music therapy is, or I think Bob's like, would you like music therapy to try and bring you a guitar? And I'm like, couldn't say anything, but I'm just like, so I'm like, yeah, let's give it a try. So they come in with this guitar, and not playing that great, but it just felt so great to kind of finally, have it back in my hands and just kind of pick a little bit, or just try to play a little bit, or even just having the feeling of holding onto the neck and having the strings beneath your fingers. You're not picking that well. Just kind of having that, being able to move around is so comforting. You're just kind of like, it's almost like having another blanket or something. I don't know how to describe it, but it's just that kind of freedom. It's just kind of like for a second or two, it's just kind of like I can play again. Yeah, yeah. But I mean, just yeah, it's just that feeling of I don't know. It's just like everything just kind of relaxes and just kind of feels good, and you're able to just kind of move around for a minute. Yeah.
You also mentioned that your thumb isn't fully functional, which makes playing guitar just a bit more of a challenge. But
Mhm.
instead of stopping you, it's made you push even harder. How have you
Mhm.
adapted and kept you from giving up?
Yeah. Well, the thumb, it's interesting because they call it a hypoplastic thumb. Uh, let's see. So basically, on the right, I guess it might be inverted, but on my right hand, I could, the thumb fully formed, and I can move it and bend it and everything. With my writing hand, the I was born with no muscle in it, so I could just kind of at most bend it up and down, or kind of like side to side, something like that, right? So it is interesting because it's like, yeah, with the guitar, there's definitely some challenges. Like I know, like Billy Gibbons on Sharp Dressed Man, he like wrapped his thumb around the neck and would do like the double stops that way. He'd hold on the root with all that. And same with Tush, kind of a similar thing. Hendrix, of course, is well known for using his thumb for all of that. Um, but with me, it's like I never knew even before I picked up the guitar what it was like to have muscle, in the thumb. So for me, it was just kind of like this is how it is. Like it's like I guess you adapt, but it's like at the same time, this is how it's always done. So it's kind of like it was more of that than anything else. It's just kind of like, okay, this is just kind of how it is. So that's just kind of how I went about it.
Besides guitar, has your thumb been a challenge to anything else?
Not really. I mean, I'm, right-handed for everything, like writing and all of that stuff. So, I mean, never really impacted me. And also in like that regard, like I can grip things just fine with it. But yeah, I don't know. I haven't really, off the top of my head, been able to think of anything like that was a big challenge with the thumb.
I've noticed you got some great taste in music, mostly classic rock,
Yeah.
from the Kiss, the Alice Cooper, and so forth. Are there
hmm
any modern bands or artists that inspire you?
Let's see. So I
Really
mean,
currently.
yeah. So I mean, it's great because there's some really great like modern like rock and roll bands that are really kind of bringing that kind of, I guess, that kind of like classic sound and kind of as a guitar player, that guitar style um, to kind of a modern uh, audience and like fresh songwriting, some of that. So like like a band like Dirty Honey um, definitely has that vibe going. Greta Van Fleet is probably the biggest example for sure. They've totally taken that sound in a really interesting direction, kind of compared to where they were starting out. It's been really fun watching them, get bigger and bigger and keep doing their thing. Um, but yeah, I mean, you got guys like Marcus King who are just incredible. It's kind of like bluesy kind of style. Um, yeah, I mean, yeah, it's great because yeah, there's so many great talented bands and guitar players, um, that have taken that sound and are being inspired, and then in turn you're being inspired by what they're doing and kind of taking all that. And so yeah, it's been great. There's definitely lots of great musicians and bands that are putting their own stamp on rock and roll.
Talk about living with Goldenhar Syndrome and overcome the challenges. In your book, you wrote,
Mhm.
living with Goldenhar Syndrome is difficult, but it's not all that bad. That's such a powerful statement. Can you share how you turned what some might see as obstacles into opportunities?
Yeah, to me, it's all about perspective. Because especially kind of, I guess the best way to kind of highlight or the best example that I have for perspective is, I had this massive airway reconstruction surgery in 2019, and it was this very big, challenging surgery where I had to be in the hospital on a ventilator for about a week, kind of you're kind of sedated too, so you're kind of in and out of consciousness. It was kind of like just this whole like roller coaster of a week, right? Not fun at all. Um, so then when I finally got like extubated and it's all of that, still in the hospital for observation and making sure everything's going okay. So when you're in the hospital, and I was in ICU, and I mean, it's lots of stuff is going on there. Like there was one particular night where this one patient who was right next to me, not like same room, but in the room over, had there was some kind of emergency or something that went down. And, I mean, you're, you're not really, you don't sleep in the hospital, right? So you're kind of seeing and hearing all of this crazy commotions and you're hearing beeps and, all of this crazy stuff going on. It kind of puts you in your place really fast of, okay, my situation is not fun. It's kind of scary and it's got its challenges, but it's like there are people that are going through things that are definitely much worse than you. So it kind of makes you a little bit grateful that things are, you know, going as smoothly as they could be in that moment. So yeah, it's for me, it always has kind of boiled down to perspective. You try and keep that, and you try and take things day by day as well. So like it's kind of like what challenges are going on right now, and just kind of pushing through it and just hoping things keep going more and more, and there aren't any setbacks. So it's really interesting. It's a I don't know. It's hard to describe it. It's like when you've experienced it, it's just kind of the, the mindset that you go in. It's strange. It's very very strange. It's interesting.
How many surgeries have you been through so far? I think at
Yeah.
the in the book, I think the last
Mhm.
count was about 35 surgeries.
Okay. That I should know this because That's kind of an important one to keep track of. I think um, I want to say it's been 37, and actually in a week it'll be 38. Um, I'm pretty sure that's the number right now. I'll probably have to double check and make sure that's right. But yeah, it's eking closer to 40.
Well, I
Yeah,
hope everything goes well. What's the next surgery on? Well, what are we still
yeah.
focusing on
Um,
with the surgeries?
yeah, so talking to you Tuesday. So this upcoming next Tuesday, the 11th, I'm going to be having what they call a DCR surgery, eye surgery, basically. And kind of long story short, I've been having well, years ago, like when I was very young, I had surgery on my eye for like a dermoid and stuff like that. And then I also had a blocked tear duct. So, doctors put like a stent in and all of that. And it stayed open. And early last year, I'm pretty positive it was caused by some kind of like eye infection that I had where my eye is just kind of like continuously tearing. It's not like leaking or anything, but like just like a tearing kind of thing. And sometimes it would get infected. And basically had an appointment uh, to kind of see what was going on. And doctors are like, yeah, it's kind of the duct is blocked again, basically. Uh, so with this surgery, I can't remember which route they're going to go. If they're going to open it back up or if they're going to form a new pathway for the tears to drain. So I have one more appointment where that'll all be discussed. But basically, they're either going to form a new way for the tears to drain or they're going to open it back up with a stent. So I'll have that in my eye for, I don't know, quite a few weeks, they said. So it shouldn't be too crazy of a procedure, but it should definitely solve that problem though.
I
So
hope that
yeah,
goes well.
yeah, thank you. Yeah, it should go pretty smoothly.
When you're a kid, you also wrote that you're always on high alert for words like surgery or labs in hospital conversations, that
Yeah.
you're even pushed for medical professionals to acknowledge medical PTSD. What do you wish more people, especially doctors, understood more about the mental health side of growing up with conditions such as Goldenhar syndrome?
Hmm. Yeah, it is interesting because yeah, when you're like as a little kid, like you're not fully tuned into what's being talked about. Lots of big words and heavy discussions getting thrown around with parents. But you are, you'd be sitting there with your whatever iPad or whatever it was, and you kind of hear like labs or surgery or something like that, or you'd kind of be tuned into that when I was little. Um, but I think with medical PTSD, it's definitely getting talked about a lot more now. Lots of people are kind of shining a bit more of a kind of spotlight on it and kind of um, how it's affected them. Like in my case, like I know next week, I already asked for like just some like what do they call it? Versed, like just like a little bit of happy juice to just kind of like calm down a bit. Because yeah, it's like it's almost like you kind of have this reaction. Like pre-op for me is the worst because it's like you're kind of mentally just kind of like freaked out, and you kind of have to, it's this whole kind of um, yeah, this whole kind of mental thing that also happens as well as physically with getting ready for surgery. So I think it's getting talked about a lot more now, and there's kind of a light being shined on it. And like I know in some cases, like a child life specialist would come in and um, kind of help like talk to me or like distract me a little bit from like what was going on. So like a therapist, kind of thing. So um, yeah, I guess I don't quite know what to say in regards like to medical professionals, but like I know it is getting talked about a lot more now. So that's good.
What would you say to younger kids going through medical PTSD? For
Mhm.
example, my daughter, she's never been through surgeries,
Yeah,
but she freaks out even through like a flu vaccine or a blood draw.
yeah,
What
yeah,
kind of mindfulness?
yeah. Well, I know because I've had to work on that as well. I mean, that's definitely been a big thing throughout my whole life of trying to find ways to get better. And I didn't know if I'd ever would, but it's like I finally started to get better with like flu shots, and I had labs a few weeks ago with the pre-op for surgery and all that. And one of the things that's been helping me a lot is, of course, music. Like I'll throw on a favorite song, like, and I try and have a sense of humor with it as well. Like when I got Labs a few weeks ago, I threw on a recent performance ACDC did of "If You Want Blood," you know, for Labs. So I tried to have a little bit of a sense of humor with it, and also kind of had a song that helps kind of calm me down a bit. It's just something that I enjoyed, you know. So getting to watch Angus play and all that kind of makes me immediately happy and improves my mood. So I'll try and find that to distract me. So yeah, music's definitely been a big thing for me.
One of my favorite parts of your book is where you say, listening to my parents discuss these issues with doctors taught me how to advocate for myself. Life
Mhm.
is not to be lived in a bubble, it is full of risk. That's such a
Yeah.
strong message. What advice would you give kids or anyone trying to find their own voice?
Hmm. Um, I think the biggest thing is like trying to find your own voice is uh I guess like if you're a kid and you're in school and everything, try joining a club with people that kind of have similar interests with you, whether it's like a sport, like a sport, like I don't know, join the basketball team, or it could be like chess club, or whatever it might be. Joining a club, with people, or like drama club, but like joining a club with people that have similar interests with you, definitely kind of helps you find like a great group of friends. Like for me, it's kind of outside of school, but School of Rock, when that opened up when I was in high school, going to the local School of Rock and getting to jam with kids my age, and be putting a band together and playing. I formed a great group of friends right off the bat.
You talked about being music being part of your therapy and being part of your humor. There was
Yeah,
a hilarious part in your book where your mom asked if you could do anything, what would it be? And you just answered sleep. I love that.
yeah.
But on a bigger level, how important has humor and perspective been in shaping how you approach life?
You got to have a sense of humor about the stuff. You got to be able to laugh because I mean, something that as well as music, because I think laughter is like probably the biggest like universal connector. Like everybody loves to be able to laugh and have a good time. So uh, humor, I think, is definitely the biggest way to cope. Like and that's kind of a good example is uh, I used to wear a prosthetic ear, right? So um, when I was younger, and there were countless times when it would accidentally fall off. So, you try and have a good laugh about it. Like, probably my favorite kind of ear story is one time when we were at Disney World when I was younger. Um, I'm a big Star Wars fan, so at the time there was this attraction called the Jedi Training Academy, and it was where you could like actually like fight Darth Vader and Darth Maul. It was super cool. I was very very excited, and uh, basically this kid, I didn't notice it, but I guess mom did. This kid was staring and staring at my ear, and finally said, hey, what happened to your ear? And this has happened plenty of times before, and you kind of had it worked out. Like, oh, if somebody asks, just kind of say, it's no big deal. I was just born without it, nothing to worry about. That's it. I can still like I'm still looking forward to the Jedi Training Academy. All that stuff. Um, but anyway, before I could get that useful response, mom's like, "Oh, he was here yesterday, and Darth Vader chopped it off." So maybe a little bit of a dark sense of humor, but we thought it was funny. And this kid is like, "Oh, hang on," and so but we quickly went, "No, no, no! Like, don't worry, don't worry. Like, we're kidding, we're kidding. I was just bored without it. No problem." So yeah, it was funny for us, maybe not for that kid, but
That
yeah,
would have been funny for those photo ops they have with Darth Vader.
yeah, just
That would have been amazing. You've also written about how inclusion should make someone with differences stand out no matter than a kid with glasses or braces. What's one
right.
thing schools, workplaces, or even the entertainment industry could do better to foster that kind of environment?
Hmm. I mean, I think it's definitely, there's been a lot of light that's kind of shown on people with differences. You see that I don't like I know like there's speakers that will come in. I mean, I've been doing public speaking and going into students and or going into schools and speaking with students and sharing my story and, kind of the challenges that I've overcome. And, you know, of course, talking about music and kind of how that, became such a uh, big thing in my life. Um, and then, even at the Q&A, it's like more about like, the kids are more interested in the music and stuff than like the differences because they kind of look past it so quickly when they, it's just once we start talking music and all that. So, which is kind of cool to like witness in real time. But I think there are definitely like really great strides that have been made just for kind of more inclusivity in general. Like there's a lot more just discussions um, um, and all that are taking place. So I think it's definitely you know, yeah, doing good.
You said something that really struck with me. Sometimes you need to take a stand, not just for yourself, but for others as well. It's a scary and takes courage. Can you share a time when you had to push back against something, and what did you learn from that?
Well, I know like in some cases, I have been kind of picked on or bullied before. Like this one time many years ago, um, I was at some summer camp and this kid just kind of said like, everything about you is weird. The way you talk with your ear, da 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 da. Uh, and then just kind of like stormed off or whatever. And of course, I was pretty upset and hurt by that and walked away. And then I went up to this kid later and I'm like, "Hey, come on, dude! Like, what's your deal?" So, kind of, so, I don't know, stood up for myself a little bit, right? And it felt good. So, I mean, being able to stand up for yourself and not not take something like that from someone um works.
You've also warned in your book that doctors speak in absolutes, saying things in total certainty when they don't have a crystal ball of sorts. How does that experience shape your approach to decision making and trusting yourself?
Yeah, it is interesting. Yeah, with some, I haven't really experienced it much, like as I, at the age I'm at now. But I know, like,
Yeah, I was wondering, do you still get those crystal ball doctors?
yeah, well, I haven't really thankfully experienced that, but I know, like, when I was little, um, mom and dad kind of experienced that with some doctors. I know friends that have had that before. And the biggest thing is, um, with medicine, it is a practice. There something that I've always thought is like there are no absolutes. There's always new studies and new things that aren't being discovered and worked on and constantly looked at. So it's like it's impossible to have like something completely set in stone. And I mean, every patient is different as well, and I'm not saying they know like what's best all the time, but it's like they know themselves the best, and they know like um, what could, definitely be the best decision or route for them. So I think it is important. Um, if there is a doctor that is kind of like, speaking in too much, too many absolutes and too much certainty, especially in maybe like a negative context or something like that too, it's kind of like, let's look for a different opinion or see what somebody else has to say. And I think that's important too, getting like a second opinion or something like that, because I know that definitely helps me out when making decisions for a surgery.
Also, in your book, you wrote something that really stood out to me. Anti-discrimination laws have helped with hiring, but the social stigma remains. And you mentioned that we have pre-existing conditions and extensive medical needs, as well as speech, hearing, and learning disabilities that are obstacles to employment. A lot has changed politically since your book has been released. Do you feel that these obstacles have gotten better or worse? And are
Huh.
there new challenges you worry about when it comes to accessibility and inclusion in the workforce?
Well, I guess it's interesting because with my line of work, with being a musician, it's definitely kind of its own thing. I know that there's definitely
Well, not
challenges.
just a musician, but for an advocate as well.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. Um, I do things that are better. I mean, it is tricky because there are, I don't know how to describe it, but I do think things have gotten better, and I guess the important thing is like discussions and actions are are taking place where at least like it's well known for people, and these discussions and actions are taking places that could open more doors for people with disabilities and all of that.
Going back to the music, music has clearly been a constant source of strength for you. You even wrote about how blasting AC/DC's Highway to Hell helped you get through pre-op. What is it about music that gives you that kind of power, that strength, that motivation?
Yeah, I mean, especially in the ACDC sense, it's just that feeling of like, especially when you crank it up, it's that feeling of it's just kind of, whew, it makes you feel really good. Kind of, especially with that band, if you crank it up, the riffs always just kind of make you want to kind of like, stand up straight, feel good, get your foot tapping, all that kind of thing. So, like, especially when a highly stressful situation like pre-op, um, blasted Highway to Hell just kind of makes you feel good, and you know, kind of helps you try to take your mind off of everything. So yeah, for me, it's always music has always been just like you want to try and do something that'll make you feel good, and it especially in a live context as well. I love like making music and coming up with riffs that make somebody feel good, and especially in like a live context, they'll get an audience kind of jumping up and down and smiling and bobbing their head. So yeah.
Yeah, music's quite a powerful thing. I'm not sure if you've heard of artist Oz Fox with Striper. He
Oh
had,
yeah. Okay.
yeah, he had brain surgery. He was getting a brain tumor removed, and he was playing his guitar during surgery. It was fascinating for the
Wow.
surgeons to watch him play the guitar and work on him at the exact same time. It was just a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And you've done so much already. Music advocacy, Pete's Diary, writing a book. What is next for you, Peter, any new projects, collaborations, or goals you're chasing?
Well, the next thing right now is unfortunately kind of the original lineup of the band kind of dissolved. So looking at kind of reforming, hoping to just get out there and start performing again, because that's my favorite thing to do. I love getting up on stage and entertaining the crowd and engaging with the crowd. That cycle between an audience and being on stage is always so much fun, to be able to perform in front of and kind of establish that connection. So I definitely want to try and reform and get back out and doing shows, and then eventually writing again and doing another record.
Awesome. And you mentioned that you got your guitar training through School of Rock and also just YouTube videos.
Yeah.
What would you say to that absolute beginner of a person picking up a guitar? Where would you tell them to start? Like for now, all I've been playing, I picked up guitar a few weeks ago. All I've gotten done
Yeah.
so far is hot cross buns.
Okay. Hey, that was my first one on the recorder. Yeah. Yeah. Let's see.
So you
I
recommend
think,
acoustic, electric? What chords do you recommend starting with?
yeah, let's see. I mean, for me, I teach sometimes at like the School of Rock now, and one of the things I start off with a new student is whether it's an acoustic or electric. I always like showing somebody a riff right away, because it's something that you can kind of relate to, and you can jam and all of that. So for me, it was I like starting off with Seven Nation Army by the White Stripes,
Good one.
um, because it is you could play it on one string, and then you can kind of like start putting in like different levels of difficulty. Like, okay, you got it on the one string. Let's start with a power chord now, and we could start moving it up and down the neck that way, and all of that. And it's even got like a little bit of a solo in it, which isn't too like challenging to play. So that's always a fun one. And then like Blitzkrieg Bop by the Ramones is another one. Okay, now the picking's getting faster, but you got power chords you're moving around. So it's kind of building on that. And then like yeah, there's soloing and all of that, but that's kind of the start of it.
If you could collaborate with any artist, who would it be?
Ooh, um, oh man, collaborate with any artist. That's a tough one. There's so many. You know, I guess if it's like a dream collaboration, someone that would be really fun to either jam with or record with would be great. But jam, I've always been a big fan of Slash.
Awesome.
That's definitely a big one. I've always heavily related to his playing. very inspired by his playing. So, yeah, if there was any like dream opportunity to come up, it came up to jam or record with him, I'm like, that would be pretty cool. That'd be pretty special.
All right, wrapping up. For anyone listening who wants to support what you're doing, whether it's Pete's Diary, your book, or just spreading your message about Goldenhar Syndrome, what's the best way that they can get involved?
Yeah, so I mean, we're on all the social channels. So like, if you go to peachdiary.com, everything's pretty much out there. But it's Peach Diary on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube. We're starting to get some longer form content going out there. So YouTube's kind of getting, is up and running. Um, we're on X as well. Um, but yeah, it's pretty much everything that's out there.
Sweet. Peter, has been such an awesome conversation. Your story isn't just inspiring, it's really real, it's powerful, and a reminder that resilience is about choosing courage over fear. Thanks for being here.
Thank you for having me.